This world is not our home, and you need to stop putting so much stock in every single place that you're living, thinking that that's going to give you peace when the only peace that you're going to find is in me. And even if you have the most amazing, perfect home in the world, you might not still have peace. The only way that you will know it is time to go into the next season is when God gives you that supernatural peace that you are waiting on. Just because God calls you to something doesn't mean that it's going to look the way that you think it's going to. When I tell you guys that this year has not played out the way I thought it would, I'm not being dramatic. Our purpose is not about us. This story was never about us. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are returning, thank you so much for your support. And if you are new here, I am so happy that you are here and becoming a part of this community of Christian women who are passionately pursuing the Lord and setting aside our sin nature every day only through the help of the Holy Spirit. Today I want to talk about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart because of a personal season of transition that my husband and I are going through. And that topic is my purpose here done? How to know when it's time for the next season. I'm sure if you are anything like me, a girl in her mid-20s who has been married for a few years and has had a couple of moves over the last decade, you have probably found yourself in multiple seasons where you think to yourself and pray to God, is this the season that I'm supposed to be in? Is it time to move on? And how do I know when it's okay to let go of a season that I know that God called me to? This can apply to a job, a relationship, a house, a rental, a city that you live in. It can literally be anything. And I just want to encourage you that just because God calls you to something doesn't mean that it's going to look the way that you think it's going to, but it's actually going to look better. It's not going to line up exactly with your vision because your vision is not what's best for you, even though we try to convince ourselves constantly that it is. God, please just flow through me. I don't want to say my own words. I want to say what you want me to share with people. Just give me fresh spiritual eyes and ideas to share my personal testimony to your people and to encourage them whatever season they're going through. And I pray that you will just fill me with your spirit as I speak in this video. I don't want to do anything without you. The pressure is off of me. It's not about me. For those of you who don't know, I am originally from Raleigh, North Carolina, and I went to Liberty in Virginia. And then once I graduated 5 years ago, I felt that the Lord was specifically calling me to Charlotte. I had literally never even visited Charlotte, which is crazy because I only grew up 3 hours away in the same state. Nonetheless, I had one friend when I moved here and she lived like half an hour away. I basically knew nobody and I started going to a church where I also knew nobody. When I moved to Charlotte, I felt God so clearly speak to me that that is what he wanted for me. And a few months ago when my husband and I were discussing some upcoming transitions, I said to him, like, I don't feel like God has clearly spoken to me about something specific since I moved to Charlotte. Of course, he's like pushed me in certain directions, taken people out of my life, done different things to help me, and he's obviously been with me and my relationship with him is strong. But I don't feel like he's clearly spoken to me about like a direction in life since then. And it's funny how your words come back to bite you in a good way. For those of you who don't know, my husband and I have lived in 3 different rentals over the last almost 4 years. Our first apartment was great. It was very small. It wasn't super nice, but it was cheap and it was quiet and peaceful. Our second apartment was much more beautiful and luxurious than the first apartment, but we had horrific neighbors above us that stomped at all hours of the night. Like we were literally worried for their children. And then we also had issues with the property manager. She towed our car. There was water damage and like mold in our apartment. It was crazy. So almost a year ago when we found this rental house, I found it on Zillow and I came and toured it and I was so excited. And I think I made a video on TikTok showing like, this was my checklist of like everything I wanted and God provided and it's just so beautiful and amazing, da 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 da. When I tell you guys that this year has not played out the way I thought it would, I'm not being dramatic. And a lot of really beautiful things have happened in my life, like creating friendships and going on trips and just like God blessing us in our obedience in the trials that we've been walking through. But living in this rental home has been so tumultuous. Our landlord is horrible, and I will eventually make a YouTube video about that, but I don't really want to get into the details. We've just been through a lot of trials over the last year of just unimaginable things happening. At every step of those things happening, I was like, well, why would God call me here if these bad things were going to happen? Well, why would he put me in the situation to be so mentally tormented when he knew these things were going to happen? And a while ago, like way back in July, one of my friends said to me, I look at you kind of like Job in the situation of like, all these bad things continually kept happening and happening and happening, but yet he stood firm in his faith because he trusted in God no matter what, and he knew the character of God, and he knew that that was something that he could rely on. And truly, that is the only thing that has gotten me through the last 12 months. I thought we were going to have kids in this house. Have we had that happen? No. I thought we were going to be able to save up for a house. Has that really happened? No. And I thought this was going to be such a place full of peace, and it just hasn't been that. And I've just watched my dreams one by one get knocked over and ripped apart basically, and honestly made into something much bigger than I was ever imagining. Because isn't that just like God? Like his dreams for us are so much bigger than what we could ever imagine for ourselves. Back in the fall of this year, we started going through the process of trying to be approved for a home loan and just trying to figure out logistics of that. And we were fully looking at houses in Charlotte. And then I had a conversation with my granddad at the end of November that really got me thinking, because I had just been praying a lot that week, and the things that he said during that conversation stirred my spirit in such a supernatural way that week, all I could think, and it was the first week of December, all I could think to myself is, oh my gosh, are we supposed to move to Raleigh? Like move back to Raleigh. I haven't lived there in almost 8 years. And so my spirit started to be at turmoil with itself, because I was like, I can't do that. I can't do that. That's giving up on my dreams. That's killing all the things that I've always wanted for myself. And that's compromising. That's this, that's that. And my spirit was just at war, because I feel like God was like, I'm trying to speak to you. And my spirit was like, I don't want that. I'm comfortable here. Like, didn't you call me here? And something that I wrote down in my journal is, what did I move to Charlotte to accomplish? And the main thing that was holding me back was, oh, I didn't accomplish everything that the Lord was calling me to do here in Charlotte, so my purpose isn't over. And Austin said that to me about 1.5 years ago, and I believe that he was right, because I've developed so many beautiful friendships and grown spiritually exponentially since he said that in that period of time. But now thinking about this, I was trying to come up with a checklist of like, what did God want me to do? Okay, I wrote down, I just came here because I knew God was calling me. It's as simple as that. And yes, a lot of tumultuous things have happened in the last 5 years, but ultimately at the end of the day, I have grown so much spiritually, so much more, I believe, than I ever would have if I had stayed in my hometown of Raleigh. And I've learned how to not rely on other people's opinions to dictate my entire life. The way I think, the way I dress, the way I maybe chase my dreams, all of that. I think I was just relying so much on people when I lived in my hometown. And if I had never left, I never would have been able to let that go. And I found God for real, and I put down roots, and he helped me create a biblical community. Something else that was holding me back is I was like, I can't leave behind this community that I've created. And God was like, girl, be so for real. You did not create that. I created that for you because I know exactly what you need. So really all of December 2024, I was in so much turmoil. I was crying in the shower. I was crying in the car. I was crying everywhere, because I just could not come to grips with the fact that I felt like God was calling us into something different. And finally, right around New Year's, so literally not even a month ago, I was putting on my socks one morning, and I just had a thought pop into my head, and it was, wouldn't it be nice to take a walk with my mom? It was something simple, something not spiritual at all, and just the thought of that filled me with so much peace. And I just thought, yes, this is right. This is right. I know that this is right. And literally things just started falling into place. Like even a timeline with my boss where she was saying like, I need to wrap up this certain project by January 31st. And I was like, can we extend it to the end of February? And she was like, no, January 31st. I was like, because in the back of my head, I felt like God had told me January 31st. And I'm literally like, I'm like crying thinking about this now because we took so many steps of faith, like literally 3 weeks ago. We gave our 30-day notice to our landlord, and my husband's job transfer to a different location for his company wasn't even approved. I didn't know what was going to happen with my jobs. There were just so many moving parts, but I just thought we have to do this, and my husband was in agreement, and we just had to take a leap of faith. And in October of 2023, I had written in the Bible app a prayer request, and it says, "Dear God, please give me peace." And I didn't even know what that meant at the time. Like, I meant it for other things. But in retrospect, I feel like this is the fulfillment of that prayer request well over a year later. And I kid you not, I started to feel so much peace after we started taking these steps of faith. And it's crazy how God does give you little signs. I was driving through Uptown Charlotte not even 2 weeks ago from my friend's place, and I passed this apartment complex, and on someone's balcony, they had the word peace spelled out in lights. And I just felt like that was a blaring and obvious sign from the Lord that it was like confirmation. And then yesterday, when my husband and I were headed to get lunch on our last Sunday here in Charlotte, we passed by this bridge, and literally the word peace was spelled out on top of it. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I see that every day on my way to work." I was like, well, I've never seen that before. And I clearly felt like that was another sign that the Lord was like, yes, it's okay. And I truly believe if you are in a season of transition and you don't know, like, am I being released from this season or not, God will give you the push in the right direction that you need. Because literally, even the thing that happened with my boss, on that day, I was like, maybe I'm delusional. Maybe we're not supposed to do this. Maybe we're not supposed to move back to Raleigh. And then God gave me another sign, and I was like, oh, okay. Okay, I will. And like, still, we don't have anything planned. We don't have a house that we're moving into. We're gonna live with my parents for a couple of months while we look for a house. And we don't have a church. We don't have friends, nothing. We're basically like starting over because I haven't lived there in so long, besides like my family living there. And it is a huge risk for me. It's a huge step of faith, but I really believe that God will provide every single thing that we need. The next thing I want to share with you guys is just a spiritual perspective of when you know it's time to go. Number one, God's plan never looks like our plan. When I moved here and started working at a church, I thought, okay, I'm going to do this residency for 2 years, and they're probably going to hire me. So then I'm probably going to work there for a few more years, and maybe I'll move somewhere else. Like, I had my whole life mapped out. I had the certain friends that God had given me right away, and I thought all of us would be friends forever. And I really just was so comfortable in my lukewarm lifestyle, but God wanted better for me. And he was like, no, girl, I'm taking you out of that job. I'm taking you out of those friendships. I'm putting you into something else, and I'm giving you friends that are passionate about the Lord. I'm giving you jobs that are going to stretch you mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, are going to stretch you creatively and bring you into the place that I want you to be. If I'd never been fired, I probably wouldn't have started my YouTube channel. If I had never experienced the friendship breakups I've experienced, I wouldn't have the boldness or the courage to share the truth in the way that God helps me do every single time I hit record on these YouTube videos or for my TikTok. The second way we can know and rest assured that the next season is coming is trusting in God's timing. I want to pause here and talk about grieving our unfulfilled dreams because, you know, I had dreams for how this season was going to go, you know? And I was on my own timeline, and there were all these different things that I wanted to happen, and some of them happened and some of them haven't happened. And I think it's just totally okay to take space and time to grieve how you thought things were going to be, and then to lean into the Lord and say, but I know that better is coming. And I believe that God holds the space for us to grieve those things, and he is close to the brokenhearted, and he cares about those dreams. And he's like, girl, I got you. They're coming in a different season that's going to be what's best for you. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1 says, for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. Also, God establishes our steps. Proverbs 16:9 says, the heart of man plans his ways, but the Lord establishes his steps. So just like in these last seasons, I've been like, oh, I'm going to do this. I want this to happen, da, da, da. There's nothing wrong with that. But God is what establishes my steps in those seasons. He's establishing your steps wherever you go. You have plans, but God laughs because he has better plans. And I love this verse, Isaiah 60:22. The least of you will become 1,000, the smallest a mighty nation. I'm the Lord, in its time I will do this swiftly. So he doesn't say, bam, I'm gonna do this right away because this is what you want. He says, in its time, it's like an oxymoron. I will do this swiftly. So he has the power to bring about great change very quickly, which is how I feel with our living situation. Our lease doesn't end until June. And we just felt so much stirring in our spirit over the last couple of months. And then all of a sudden things just started lining up one after the other. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is God lining things up swiftly, just like he said he was going to in scripture. And last, God's purpose is not about you. If I had gotten what I wanted in every season of life, I would not be where I am today. I would not have the relationship with God that I have. I wouldn't have any depth to anything that I'm saying to you right now. It wouldn't hold any weight at all. Our purpose is not about us. This story was never about us. You living in a specific place, you having a specific job, you having a specific relationship, anything that brings glory to the Lord was never about you to begin with. Yeah, God's going to use it in your life to shape you and mold you and grow you into who he wants you to be. But the sole purpose of that is to bring glory to him and to shine his light to the world. And when I think about like my time here in Charlotte, I'm like, dang, God really did give me opportunities to do that. And I'm so grateful for that. Like that was the whole point of me being here in the first place. So now I want to share some practical tips for how to actually discern, is God closing the door on this chapter and moving you into a new season and releasing you from where you are. I really think it's okay to live in the tension of the unknown and to lean into the Lord. This is literally how I felt all of December. I just was like in the tension, in the confusion. I just kept praying, God show me, God show me, God show me. I don't want to make a move until you clearly speak to me. I remember writing that down. Matthew 6:33 says, seek the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and he will give you everything you need. He doesn't say he will give us everything we want. He says he will give us everything we need. So think about like whatever need that you have that God has provided for over and over again. It may not be exactly what you want, but it is what you need for this season. Number one, and I know I'm gonna get haters for this because y'all don't want to read your Bible, but number one, how you're going to discern is to read the word and spend time with God. That is how you learn his character. That is your safe place. That is where God speaks to you clearly. Now, it may not be an audible voice, but he'll lead you to a passage or to a feeling in your spirit where you just know, like, yes, God is speaking to me right now. When you ask God to guide you, he will guide you clearly in his timing. But in order to discern God's voice, you must be in the word. That is the book of life. James 1 verse 2 through 8 says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of various kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, lacking in nothing. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault. So he's not upset at you that you don't know the answer to the issue in your life. And then it says, and it will be given to you. And when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed about by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. So like when I'm going to the Lord and asking him for wisdom, I'm praying that in faith that he will give me the guidance and the signs and everything, the confirmation that I need to be released from this season and move into something different. The next thing I would encourage you to do if you're wrestling in between two different seasons is look for the growth in this season and say like, okay, I'm waiting for God to speak to me, but what is he teaching me right now? And how can I be content for the things I have? This is something that I was really wrestling with in December because I was like, okay, I don't want to rush ahead into a different season. I want to be fully present and grateful for everything that I have now, but also I am waiting on the Lord to speak to me. It would be nice if he would give me some direction so I can take some steps. But I think something helpful here is just to say like, how has God been growing me? And how is it tied to what I believe that he's trying to teach me in this next season? And the last part of this point that I will say is we have got to trust God even when it's difficult. I was scared when we submitted our 30-day notice. I was like, well, we don't have anywhere to live, so we're gonna have to live with my parents for the foreseeable future, the next month or two. And you know, I love my parents. I have a good relationship with them, but I don't think any couple that's been married for a few years, like their ideal situation is to live with their parents. But like, you do what you gotta do. And you trust God in the unknown, in the uncomfortability. And you're like, okay, God, you're guiding me in this season. I'm taking a step of faith. And I believe like God will provide somewhere for us to live. And I also want to share, like when I was thinking about should we leave or should we stay? I made a list of all the things that I would be sacrificing if we left. And then I made a list of all the things I would be gaining if we moved. And the list for moving was smaller than the list for staying. But yet I still felt like God was stirring me towards that. And it was honestly gut-wrenching when I started thinking about leaving Charlotte, because it's been so fundamental for me as a young adult, becoming the person that God wanted me to be. And it just like honestly broke my heart, and I was crying a lot about it. And I just felt like the Lord gave me peace, and he was like, you have gleaned what you needed to from this season. I'm releasing you, and it's okay. And you're not a bad person for, you know, moving into a different chapter of your life. And you're not gonna miss out on your dreams, and like your testimony's not over. Like you're gonna still continue to grow, but you got the most important propelling proponents of your relationship with God thus far in this season. Like you don't think, girl, that I'm gonna like keep doing that for you? He's so funny. And my last point is a point of encouragement for you guys. A year ago, I was really caught up in our home and what it looked like and meeting my checklist and God providing this, that, and the other. And none of those things are bad desires, and they're not wrong. Something I've always struggled with since I was little was thinking that this world is our home and being so wrapped up in like how things look and how they're perceived and all these different things. And of course, like I like for things to be cute, you know? That's why I like thrifting, because it helps me do that on a budget. Through all the trials that we've experienced over the last year, especially with our landlord and just having so much turmoil, I feel like God has revealed to me, this world is not our home. And you need to stop putting so much stock in every single place that you're living, thinking that that's gonna give you peace, when the only peace that you're going to find is in me, is in my presence, is in spending time with me. It's not in social media, it's not in other people, it's not in the world, it's not in a home. And even if you have the most amazing, perfect home in the world, you might not still have peace. Hebrews 13, verse 14 through 16 says, "For this world is not our permanent home. We're looking forward to a home that's yet to come. Therefore, let us offer through Jesus a continual sacrifice of praise to God, proclaiming our allegiance to his name, and don't forget to do good and to share with those in need. These are the sacrifices that please God." This world is not our home, and I used to love this world more than the thought of heaven, and I don't anymore. And it's not because I'm this uber spiritual girl who's just gotten to this amazing place with God. No, it's because he's filled me with supernatural peace, just like I prayed for well over a year ago. And I believe so strongly that he can do that for you too, that he wants to do that if you will just let him into your heart, let the walls down, let your guard down, and let him melt your heart of stone, because I had a heart of stone for several years. And I didn't want to find my peace in God. I didn't want my desires to line up with him. And it's only through his spirit that he helped and allowed any of those things to happen in my life. I just want to ask you guys, have you ever been in a season where God's plans for your life did not match your own? Because if so, you are not alone, but I'm believing that God will align his desires and his plan for your life with your desires, and whatever desires that you have that don't line up with his, I just pray that he would remove them from your life and clearly reveal to you what he has in store for you. Now, it may not be like he's giving you 100% of the puzzle pieces, but he's giving you the next step to take, and you just have to take that next step in faith. Our pastor yesterday at church was like, when you're driving at night and your headlights are on, you cannot see all the way down the highway. You can only see a few feet in front of you. And that's kind of like how God guides us. He gives us what we need for the season that we're in, for the steps that we are taking, and he continues to guide us. That's why we have to rely on him. He will make our path straight. The only way that you will know it is time to go into the next season is when God gives you that supernatural peace that you are waiting on. Yeah, he's gonna give you signs, or other people might say stuff, but I would encourage you to keep whatever thoughts you have close to the vest and only let one or two trusted sources in to pray for you, and really heavily rely on God and your spouse to navigate the season spiritually, because He will give you the insight you need. And other people's opinions are great, but they're not God's. It's not everything to have other people approve of your every move. Trust me. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for watching this video. And if you relate, please leave a comment below of how the Lord clearly revealed to you it was time to be released and go into the next season. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more Christian content. And I have another video along these same lines, but kind of like about moving to the new season, that I'm going to record this week and have that out for you guys soon too. So stay tuned. I'm so excited to share it with you. And I'm going to be sharing the moving process with you as well, and just like all that the Lord does in our lives. So I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.